Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this first day of December 2021. And if you'd like additional weather information to what I provide this evening, you can go to weather.gov/Alaska. If you have any interesting observations or photos you wish to share with me, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. Well, we have a lot of things going on. We have more snow that'll be moving into the Panhandle this evening, overnight into the day Thursday. Several inches of snow could fall in areas. I'll show you what the latest advisories, where they are. Wind chills down around 60 below the northeastern Arctic coast, up along the eastern half of the North Slope and Brooks Range. Bitterly cold air will be settling into the northern and eastern parts of the state with a strong Arctic high coming in off the Arctic Ocean. We are watching a windy front coming in off the Bering. That'll happen later tomorrow, Thursday evening into the day Friday, and that's going to create some strong southeast to south winds gusting up around and even over 50 miles an hour with snow and blowing snow along portions of the west coast. And then there is the potential for a more widespread winter storm with more widespread accumulating snows across the western and southwestern coast that'll spread into the western and southwestern interiors as we go through Sunday and into Monday. I'll highlight that more coming up. But let's look at what's going on this afternoon. Hyder, just seeing some cloudy skies, lowering ceilings, but another 3 to 7 inches of snow is on the way for tonight into Thursday. Also Pelican under a winter weather advisory for about 3 to 6 inches from snow showers here as we go through tonight and into the day on Thursday. Colder air is wrapping in around low pressure, and we'll get those snow showers going and impact the Panhandle here as we go through tonight. Further off to the west, Buckland had clear skies and the coldest temperature reported as of this morning, low of 38 below. And you would have been able to see the aurora there last night. There's been a little uptick in the northern lights last night, and we expect that could be the case the next couple of nights. So if you're in a clear location, it'll be very cold, but you may have a little better chance of seeing an enhanced display of the northern lights in areas that are clear here coming up tonight and especially Thursday night. And then further to the west, Scammon Bay, windy front is heading your way, especially for later tomorrow night into the day on Friday. So here is the current hazard weather map showing winter weather advisories in yellow for Yakutat south through Gustavus, Sitka, Pelican, Cake, on over toward the interior areas of the inner waterways of Juneau down through Wrangell and Hyder. 3 to as much as 7 inches of snow could fall due to snow showers here tonight through the day on Thursday, even lingering into early Friday morning. Back up to the north, wind chill warning in effect for areas along the Brooks Range, eastern Arctic coast and North Slope, where wind chills could be as cold as 60 below zero through Friday morning, and low temperatures in these areas are going to be getting down to around 40 below as that Arctic high builds in from the northwest. Meanwhile, out along the west coast from Point Hope southward to the western coast of the Seward Peninsula, including St. Lawrence Island, and the Yukon Delta, Hooper Bay, Scammon Bay. That area there will see snow and blowing snow developing as we go through late Thursday, especially later Thursday night into Friday. Some wind gust out of the southeast and south could be up over 50 miles an hour. The heavier snow should fall the southern areas there, the further north, more in the way of blowing snow, especially up there along the Chukchi Sea. So here's the satellite imagery, and it shows a couple of curls in the clouds there. There are 2 low pressure centers over the northern Gulf, one just off the Kenai, another one just moving in there to the south-southeast of Yakutat. That's going to bring in the colder air that generates those snow showers for tonight into Wednesday across the Panhandle. Meanwhile, across the interior, we have areas of clouds producing some light snow and flurries. And then on the backside, circulation out of the north-northwest along the west and southwest coast, we have areas of snow showers. And then further west, you can see the brighter enhanced cloud tops way off on the west side of your screen along the coast of Japan, Kamchatka. That is that frontal system that'll be working its way eastward across the Bering tomorrow and then impacting the west coast late tomorrow night into Friday. So there are the lows this afternoon, dual lows out over the Panhandle. Back toward south of Prince William Sound with the Arctic high, the initial push coming in there along the north slope, the western half of the north slope, with the main high still back up there in the Arctic Ocean, but that is building southeastward and it will strengthen to up around or just over a 1045 millibar high. A weakening frontal system in through the central eastern Bering will give way to the stronger system that will begin to spread moisture in a little warmer temperatures. And when you get warmer, moist air this time of year coming into the cold air, that means snow and also wind. So by Thursday, we're still watching low pressure sitting and spitting over the northern Gulf with that high taking hold there along the north slope and Brooks Range, and then that frontal system out through the Bering marching eastward. And by Friday, we'll see that front moving onshore through the west coast, producing snow and blowing snow. Again, some wind gusts could be up over 50 miles an hour, creating blizzard conditions at times. And then the high pressure center along the Alcan border will be entrenched there, allowing for some very cold temperatures and wind chills there across the northern and east central interior. Here is the temperature forecast for Thursday morning, still near freezing down toward Ketchikan, but below freezing across much of the Panhandle. Areas across the south central interior below zero. And then Thursday afternoon, we'll see temperatures a little above freezing there, the southern half of the Panhandle, otherwise near freezing for highs. Back out to the west, below zero temperatures remain along and west of the Alaska Range. Friday morning will be even colder, 32 below at McGrath, 23 below at Glen Allen. Temperatures well below freezing into the Panhandle, with the exception of maybe the far southern tip. And then Friday afternoon highs should get back up a little above freezing in the southern Panhandle, but back across the south central interior, temperatures will remain sub-zero, especially north of Anchorage. Now looking at the Arctic coast and the Yukon Valley, highs way below zero, or I should say lows way below zero Thursday morning along the Arctic coast, 25 to near 35 below. And as we go into Thursday afternoon, don't look for much recovery in temperatures. Some areas may not get above 20 below for highs. And then Friday morning will be one of the colder mornings we've seen so far. Some areas 40, could even be an isolated approaching 50 below reading there in the eastern portion of the Brooks Range, with wind chills down around 60 below zero. Friday afternoon highs will stay bitterly cold, generally in the 20 below zero with some 30 below zero readings continuing. Across the southwest interior, below zero, 25 below Antioch Thursday morning. Still near freezing out, extending out through the eastern central Aleutians, but as that front with milder air works its way eastward, we'll see temperatures bump up to around 40 through the central Aleutians. And then Friday morning lows still way below zero up through the Kuskokwim and Yukon River valleys, but lows should generally be above freezing once you get out toward the tip of the Alaska Peninsula westward into the Aleutians. And Friday afternoon, temperatures will begin to moderate along the southwest coast, including Nunavik Island, where Makoriak could get up to about 22. Quick check of temperatures. Even though temperatures are expected to moderate, they will, compared to how cold they're going to be, have been and will be up here through about Saturday morning. By December 7th through the 11th, temperatures still a bit below normal in the southern part of the state, moderating in the north. But then the other switch is we're going to see above normal precipitation across much of the state, especially through the interior, southwest interior to up along and north of the Alaska Range through the Yukon River. So that could spell some rounds of accumulating snow, a couple of winter storms we'll have to keep an eye on as we go through the first and second week of December. Look for a somewhat active pattern.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, for all your pilots out there, it's now time for your aviation weather. If you have a flight planned late this week, Thursday into Friday, low pressure will continue to sit and spin out over the northern Gulf. And we'll be watching strong high pressure over the northern portion of the state along the north slope build east-southeastward toward the Alcan border to about 1045 millibars. And then there'll be a stronger frontal system moving through the Bering that'll bring snow and blowing snow along the southwest coast, especially in the vicinity of Nunavik Island as we get into later Thursday night and Friday morning. Otherwise, IFR conditions are expected across parts of the North Slope as well as the central eastern Alaska range and also across much of the inner mountains there of the inner channels of the Panhandle. There could even be a rumble of thunder, some elevated instability early Thursday. Otherwise, IFR conditions will persist across the inner coastal mountains there of the Panhandle into the northern parts of the Panhandle. And then you can see out to the west IFR conditions along a frontal system that'll be working its way eastward through the Bering, so that by Friday morning we'll see that front with strong gusty winds moving on through St. Lawrence Island on into Nunavik Island and the eastern Aleutians. And for Friday afternoon, look for IFR conditions expanding there along that frontal system through the eastern Bering and along especially the southwest coast, while still persisting areas of the southeast interior along the Alcan border, as well as the inner coastal mountains, the inner channels there of the Panhandle. Past conditions on Thursday, Anatuvik will see MVFR conditions become VFR, as will Adigan, though MVFR conditions will tend to persist the further north you fly there, north of the north entrance into the North Slope. Lake Clark and Merrill will see MVFR conditions in the early morning becoming VFR, as will Rainy Pass. And as we round the central and northern portion of the Alaska range, MVFR conditions will give way to VFR conditions at Windy Pass, but the farther north you fly, north of the north entrance, could hold on to IFR conditions, especially through the first half of the day. Same thing at Isabel, seeing IFR conditions in the early morning becoming MVFR. Mentasta should also see IFR conditions there or in vicinity becoming MVFR, and further south and west Tanita should see MVFR conditions improving to VFR on Thursday. And the same situation for Portage Pass, MVFR early in the day becoming VFR, and further east in the northern Panhandle, IFR conditions will persist throughout the day Thursday at both Chilkoot and White. So looking at freezing levels are down near the surface there, just along the outer coast of the Panhandle into the lower southwestern Gulf to kind of between the eastern Aleutians and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, with higher freezing levels out through the western half of the Aleutian chain in response to the warmer, more moist air being drawn northeastward from that frontal system that'll eventually impact the western coast, west and southwest coast as we get into Thursday night, Friday. Best chance of icing will be along that frontal system in the western Bering between 5,000 and 15,000 feet. Otherwise, 2,000 to 6,000 feet around St. Matthew and St. Paul, as well as Nunavik Island and St. Lawrence, and then between 3,000 and 10,000 feet there and through the lower Panhandle and Haida Gwaii. There are the upper level winds, 30,000 foot strong, jet core in excess of 150 knots from the southwest moving into Vancouver. Low pressure in the upper level still continues to circulate northern Gulf. Backside, we have a strong north flow upwards to over 100 knots there out of the north across the west side of the state, and then a stronger west-southwest flow coming in ahead of that frontal system in through the western Aleutians. At mid-levels, 9,000 feet, strong winds out of the west-northwest across the lower Gulf to 65 knots. Very strong mid-level winds in excess of 50, upwards to 75 and 80 knots across much of the Bering. That is going to bring in warmer air and moisture, and as we get down to 3,000 feet, low-pressure circulation continues out over the northern Gulf. Stronger northwest flow over the Alaska Peninsula, and then you can see a core of upwards to 80-knot winds with that frontal system at 3,000 feet. That's going to spell turbulence, severe turbulence possible out over much of the Bering and especially the central western Aleutians. Surface to 3,000 feet with low-level wind shear likely along that frontal system. Also areas of isolated severe turbulence possible across parts of the Alaska Peninsula between the surface and 4,000 feet.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major, usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. Landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline, so tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis on the Aleutian Trench, and it's where the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the American plate, and we produce some very large, great quakes, and of course the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench. Okay. But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk, and then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No, I mean, I won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
very good.
Near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast, anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami, and then of course the landslides in southeast. It's even more intense because we can't.
So shorter warning time.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Wow.
Yeah. At the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So if you feel shaking, and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold, and you need to start counting slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So 1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you can count anything you like. And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps. Especially helps kids, but it'll help your psyche.
So you don't speed up because you're getting stressed out.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean. Right. This is important if you're next to the ocean. If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles. You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise. So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So.
And that was a big quake.
That was a big quake.
So you have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
To 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide. And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving. So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in '64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out, it might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind, but that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead. So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise, get out of there. And if it goes out really fast, get out of there. You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird. You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe. Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out. Right. And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping at night near the beach, and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore. That would be different. That would be weird. Yeah. Okay. And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock grains. So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird. Okay. Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially. Okay. Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what their risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The URL is not intuitive at all. Okay. There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready. Okay. And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth on how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and we close today's show with the marine segment. Sea ice edge. Well, we have extensive sea ice along the Arctic coast and Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, but we are going to have a couple of stronger low pressure systems riding up along the Kamchatka Peninsula and Russian coast, and that's going to push a strong windy frontal system in through the west coast as we go through later Thursday and during the day on Friday. So that's going to cause the ice to shift a bit, especially there along the west coast. North of Nunavik Island on up through the Bering Strait, where we could see some southeast to south winds ahead of the front, gusting at times upwards to 50 miles an hour or so. But the ice is rather extensive down through the eastern Bering along the west and southwest coast, and we also see ice developing in some of the bays of not just the Alaska Peninsula, but up through Cook Inlet. And looking at the marine forecast for Thursday for the Panhandle, we'll have snow showers in the area. Winds southeast to south, 15 to 20 knots, inner canals, gust up to 35 knots, Lynn Canal, waves generally 3 to 4 feet. However, higher there as you get south of Dixon Entrance. And along the coast, generally 20 to 30 knot winds from the southwest to west, with waves 15 to around 20 feet. For Friday, winds come down a bit, more variable in through the inner canals. Out of the north, 25 knots, Lynn Canal with 5-footers, but still holding on to the south-southeast, 15 knots, Petersburg down through Ketchikan, Metlakatla. And then off of the outer coast there in the Gulf, we're looking at winds southwest 20 knots, south of Sitka, waves running around 12 feet. Turning in the low-pressure circulation to the southeast and east from Yakutat westward with waves of 7 to 9 feet. South central areas will see winds northwesterly, Prince William Sound, 4-footers, north-northeast, 15 to 20 knots, the upper Cook Inlet. However, outflow winds to 55-knot storm force winds and 18-foot waves are possible there. The Barren Islands there between the Kodiak Island and the mainland. And then for Friday, look for winds out of the northeast and north through Upper Cook Inlet, turning northwesterly, at the mouth of Cook Inlet to just northeast of Kodiak at 30 knots out of the northwest, 7-foot waves. North winds, Prince William Sound, 3-foot waves. Thursday, look for Kodiak Island to have winds out of the west-northwest, 40-knot gales with gusts up to 55 knots in Shelikof Strait. Northwest winds 30 knots along the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula, waves 6 to 9 feet. And then look for winds to be out of the either a northeasterly or northwesterly direction up there around Kodiak Island and at the beginnings of the Alaska Peninsula, turning southerly as you get down toward Cold Bay in advance of that frontal system that'll be working its way through the Aleutians tomorrow. So for Thursday, storm force winds 50 to 55 knots west of Adak from the south. They'll veer to the southwest. The eastern Aleutians start out with southwest winds 20-25 knots, but those will be picking up. The bulk of the winds, though, Thursday night and Friday pass north of the Aleutians, and look for winds generally across the Aleutian chain to shift around to the west at about 30 knots. Waves 10 to 15 feet on the North Pacific side, and generally around 15 to 20 feet on the Bering side. And then areas that have ice will see southeast winds picking up between 25 to 30 knot gales ahead of that front on Thursday. And as we get into Thursday night, ahead of the front, gale force winds 35 to 45 knots from Akoriak up along Hooper's Bay to Savunga, and stronger winds out over the open waters there of the Bering with waves upwards to 25 feet and 45 or 40 knot southwesterly gales at St. Matthew. Along the Arctic coast, winds will be westerly, generally 15 knots or so with ice in place. Along the lower Chukchi Sea, winds between 15 to as high as 25 knots from the east-southeast, and then 35 knot gales from the Bering Strait southward to the north side of St. Lawrence with waves up to 9 feet where there is any open water. And then on Friday, winds will generally be out of the southeast along the Arctic coast, with the exception at Kaktovik, where they'll be westerly at 15 knots. Otherwise, winds along the northwest coast down through the Chukchi Sea to the Strait, picking up to 35 to 45 knot southeasterly gales with ice in place, but waves up to 12 feet where there is open water there north of Nunavik Island. So that wraps up the show for this Wednesday evening. Thank you for watching, and I'll have the latest updates on the watches, advisories, and warnings come tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.